Andrew Scheer has condemned a woman who appears in a video with a racist rant, but it may be a hoax, or is it maybe even a case of mental illness? To talk more about it is one of our regular contributors, Brian Lilley, who joins me once again from Toronto. Brian, was it in fact a hoax?
We're still not sure how, but whatever it was not something normal. It was not what you would expect from someone that was a Conservative Party supporter. A lot of people, when they first saw this video, said this looks like a bad drama. A bad high school drama project. It seemed staged. There's talk that the person that the woman in question, Talia Davidson, was yelling at, is a current or former staffer of Finance Minister Bill Morneau. All that aside, what we can tell you is that the woman in the video, this Talia Davidson, has been remanded to the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. She had a bail court appearance on Tuesday in Toronto at the College Park Courthouse. And she wasn't let out on bail. It was okay. You're going to go and be examined for a little while. This appearance on video was very strange. Talia Davidson is someone that had a very large online footprint. This is someone who was very active in left wing political causes. She had been profiled going to events for Now Magazine. And, for anyone that is watching that does not know Now Magazine, and that would be the majority of people, Now Magazine is the type of publication that describes the Toronto Star and CBC as being part of the right wing corporate media. Yeah, yeah, and I'm not joking. This is how they have actually been described in Now Magazine. And Talia Davidson was a regular contributor. She's photographed going to events for them. She, for a long time, was dating a man named Louis Vega, who is a Venezuelan Canadian, opened a Venezuelan restaurant in a very trendy part of Toronto. I reached out to him and said, "Look, you're connected to her online. Her photo appears on your Facebook page. What can you tell me about her?" He said that he hadn't talked to her in more than a year, but that he does not agree with what she put forward in that video. So, was it a hoax? Was it an attempt by someone on the left to discredit Andrew Scheer, or is it someone in mental health distress? At this point, we honestly don't know. I can tell you that Michelle Rempel, so Andrew Scheer had, denounced the woman and said, "I don't agree with what she said in this video." Michelle Rempel, the Conservative MP from Calgary, went a step further and said, if this is real, A, we don't want this in the Conservative Party. B, this woman appears to need help. I hope she gets whatever help she needs. So that may be what's going on here. We'll wait to find out. It's going to take a little bit of time to sort this one out. But let me remind you, this comes on the heels of another viral story that went out saying that Andrew Scheer was um, uh, employing actors to approach him on the street and say they supported him. And a Montreal actress came forward uh, who said her life was made hellish because of the claims that she had been hired to do this. She just shared the first name with the woman. And she ended up facing all kinds of online abuse. And she said, you've got to be wary of fake news. So, we've got this woman with the video claiming to be an Andrew Scheer supporter, but saying things that Scheer himself has never said. We've got the viral video or the viral claims about Scheer hiring an actress that he didn't hire. And we've got claims by Liberal MP Adam Vaughan out of Toronto, who was tweeting out photos of US detention centers where children are held at the border and linking it to what Conservatives in Canada do. We really do need to be wary of what we're consuming when it comes to media, online or otherwise. But that includes from all sides. Like I know this has been put forward as something that you've got to be worried about from the right. No, these are three things that have been aimed at Andrew Scheer that aren't true.
Yeah, be very careful what you see, you read, and you hear. Brian, a recent report out says the federal Liberals and Conservatives are evenly matched when it comes to local riding association fundraising, but you say that Tories have actually raised quite a bit more.
Yeah, so this latest report says that when you look at the riding associations across the country, that they're pretty evenly matched, and that's accurate. Uh, when you go riding association by riding association, so that's each and every electoral district association. That's the technical term for them. uh, the Conservatives have a little over $24 million. The Liberals have a little over $21 million. So when you're talking about 338 ridings being, apart by $3 million, not huge, especially when you consider that in the last election, at that same level, the Conservatives more than doubled the Liberals. But here's where it matters. I was speaking with a senior Conservative over the weekend who told me that they're the only party, and when you look at the national fundraising numbers, it bears this out. They could actually, he said, if we were to win a minority government and then be voted down weeks or months later, we're the only party that could immediately go into another national campaign without having to go into debt, without having to go to the bank and borrow money. So that does put them at a significant advantage because, by my calculations, I would say the Conservatives, without a campaign going on right now, would be at about 157 seats. That's up about 60 odd seats from where they are now. So I see them winning the most seats, but not a majority. It could go the other way. Campaigns matter, but I would put them at about 157. So if they were to win 157, that wouldn't be a majority. So they could be voted down very quickly. But they tell me they're the only party ready to go into a second national campaign immediately without having to raise another dollar.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went to Toronto to talk gun ban, but won't commit or rule out the move. What have you seen in the past few days?
Well, I've been with him for the past few days as he tours around southern Ontario, and it's really strange because the prime minister keeps being, prompted by many members of the media. Why haven't you done a gun ban? When will you do a gun ban? What's holding you up? I mean, these are the types of questions that he's being asked, and he won't commit to it. So there's a couple of things going on here. If you remember back a few months ago, Bill Blair, the minister in charge of studying this issue, came out with a report that back in April that said even the statistics show a handgun ban wouldn't necessarily help things. But then in around June, he was talking about, well, maybe we'll ban certain types of rifles, but we don't want to do a handgun ban because it could cost up to $2 billion. That's right, $2 billion, because they would have to buy the handguns back from people that currently own them. Trudeau was asked about all of this on Tuesday when he met with Toronto Mayor John Tory, who is advocating for a handgun ban. And he wouldn't commit to it, but he also wouldn't rule it out and just kept saying, I look forward to sharing what is in the Liberal platform with you. So Trudeau is trying to play both sides against the middle at the moment. He's trying to play footsies with both sides. He is, basically, as I've told you before, Hal, he's trying to find whatever he can do to bring together not only Liberal voters, but to peel away enough New Democrat and Green voters so that he can defeat the Conservatives. He's not trying to win over conservative swing voters. He's trying to win over those voters with the other progressive parties, the Greens and the NDP, to form a coalition without having to have a coalition government after October 21st.
The trade war continues between the United States and China, Brian, and if it drags on much longer, it could also impact Canadian agriculture producers, including those right here in the West.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before on the side of how the current trade war is already hurting in terms of canola, soybean, pork, and beef. Well, now the concern, Hal, is that if the United States, which has effectively provoked this trade war to try and get a trade deal with China, because they don't see China as following the rules. They don't see China as being a rule of law country. They don't see China as acting in good faith. They say, all right, well, if these guys aren't going to follow the rules, we're going to force them to. And that's a good part of what all of this is. Well, if the US gets a trade deal with China that irons out all these problems, now Canadian farmers are saying, we could be squeezed out. Unfortunately, because of the whole Meng Wazoo issue, the Huawei CFO, we are effectively being blocked from benefiting from the current trade war because we're seen as being too close to the Americans on this. I'd rather be too close to the Americans than too close to Beijing. You just have to look at what's happening in places like Hong Kong, where people are protesting for their democratic rights, and the government is responding with tear gas, with trying to shut down airports, with trying to shut down democratic values that we hold dear. So, if we're going to be on the side of anyone, I'd say let's be on the side of the Americans. But the end game could end up being that Canadian farmers are blocked out of China. So that brings us back to what you and I talked about last week. We need to start looking at where we can increase trade with our TPP partners. The Americans aren't part of that, so we can sell more to Japan, we can sell more to Vietnam, we can sell more to Brunei, Indonesia, all these other countries.
The federal leaders debate is coming up. Justin Trudeau will be there, so will Andrew Scheer, Jagmeet Singh, I believe Elizabeth May, but no Maxime Bernier. Why was he excluded?
So Maxime Bernier has been excluded from both the official and the unofficial debates. Of course, in the last election, the Conservatives said, we're done with this whole broadcast consortium thing. If somebody wants to hold a debate, we'll be there. And so we had the Globe and Mail debate, the Maclean's debate, the Monk debate. There were a whole pile of debates. There was one in French, but there wasn't the broadcast consortium debate, which I thought was actually a good thing. It mixed it up. It made it more interesting. Justin Trudeau said, oh, no, we've got to have a broadcast consortium debate. And he established a panel. Former Governor General David Johnston was part of that. He's invited the leaders that you just mentioned, but not Maxime Bernier because he hasn't met all the conditions yet. The Monk Center, which holds a number of debates throughout the year on various political issues, they've invited all the federal leaders to have a debate on October 1st regarding foreign affairs issues. So far, only Andrew Scheer has said that he will join in that, but they didn't even invite Maxime Bernier. And part of the reason is he doesn't hold a seat currently. He wasn't elected as a People's Party candidate. That's why I think Elizabeth May should have been disqualified from previous debates. You either have to have official party status or have been elected under your banner. That was never the case with Elizabeth May. They allowed her to get in under previous rules that they wouldn't have allowed other parties to get into. So I was never in favor of her being in the past. That's why I'm okay with Bernier not being in. But if they're going to let Elizabeth May in, then they probably should let Bernier in. Unfortunately, that's not likely to be the case.
One of our regular contributors, award-winning journalist Brian Lilley, joining me once again from Toronto. Thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.